Can we tell the difference between minks, fishers, and weasels? That's what we're going to talk about today. Hi, this is Jill from the Northwoods talking about being your neighborhood naturalist right outside your front door. And if you're anything like me, you go out in the woods, maybe small woods, maybe the park just down the street, and you see a small little animal and it runs across the street. Now, there's all sorts of things it can be, but today we're going to talk about three of them. Three of them that kind of get lumped in together. So, Em and I have just gotten done with the 2 week vacation we take every year. And she leaves her husband. We go out and we do bird watching, nature watching hard for 2 weeks. I think there's only 2 days we took off. One was because of weather, and one was because I had to go to the DMV and do a bunch of stuff. So we went out and hiked. We did a lot of bird watching. We recorded 148 birds, but I have to tell you that along the way, all sorts of little critters that we saw. And the question started coming up, wait, is that a mink? Or is that a weasel? Or maybe that's a fisher. I'm not really sure which one that is. So we thought we would do a podcast so that you too could figure out what the difference between the three of them are. So the first one we'll talk about is the minks. And I didn't know that they were wild animals here in the North Woods. I thought that they were, I don't know, something more exotic, but they are. We have them here all over the place. And they belong to the family that includes weasels, otters, ferrets, those kinds of things. The American mink is native to North America, and the European mink is native to Europe, but now is critically endangered. They are around rivers, lakes, marshes. They like water. That's the big thing. They are 1.5 to about 2 feet long, and they have a tail, and they weigh about 1 to 3 pounds, depending on the mink itself. Their fur is very dense, it's very waterproof, and so it keeps them doing great in those watery systems. They are carnivores. They eat birds, fish, frogs, crustaceans, other types of things. I always see them slinking around the riverside looking for something good to eat. And they tend to be solitary, territorial. They will fend off their area. And they also are active all year long, but they are nocturnal, so they come out at night. They are very fierce hunters when it comes to things that they hunt. They're very agile, they're clever, they have been known to kill prey bigger than themselves. They have even taken over dens for beaver dens and muskrats, much bigger animals, and they store extra food for later. They often swim with their head above the water, but their bodies are sleek, powerful, and silent in the water. So they're very sleek as they go through. They're sort of torpedo shaped, but you can always just see the head just above the water. That's one of the big ways that you can tell. And they are good survivalists. They know how to feed themselves and their families very, very well. The American mink is considered to be invasive in Europe, and that's because they do better. And so they are competing with the native minks that aren't doing as well, including the water voles too. Also, they have a scent gland. That's a little bit like a skunk, although you never hear about people saying they got sprayed by a mink. But they use it mostly to ward off threats, mark their territories, and their hearts beat like 280 times per minute. But then let's talk next about fishers. I have seen some fishers as well. And the interesting thing is, fishers don't fish. They're not fishers. They're not fisher animals, but they're stealthy. They're forest creatures. They're built like a bit like if a cat dated a weasel. They are very good stalkers. They are about 4 to 6 pounds, so bigger than the mink. Some of them can get even up to 18 to 13 pounds, the males, and they're about 2.5 feet to 4 feet, including the tail. Like I said, more forest in North America, Canada, the northern US. That's where they're mostly at. They love the dense forests, they love the conifer trees and mixed hardwoods. And they live about 7 to 10 years in the wild. Like I said, they don't fish, which makes it confusing. Instead, they were named because of the European polecat skunk typically, Fitch. And the name stuck, even though they don't eat fish. And what's neat about them is they're very stealthy, they're very elusive, they're very hard to see, solitary again, secretive, and rarely even seen. Someone said they move like a ghost in the underbrush. They use logs and leaves and anything they can to stay hidden. They can climb. They're one of the very few mammals that climb down the tree head first. And that's because they can rotate their ankles much like a squirrel can. And they are one of the few predators that can hunt porcupine. They're so fast and agile. They mostly eat, like I said, other animals. Rabbits, squirrels are going for that bigger thing. Mice, birds, insects, other types of things. Occasionally, they eat berries and mushrooms, but not all the time. And in wintertime, you may find them because they zigzag through trees and you can find their tracks as they zigzag through trees. So that's one quick way of telling them different between the mink. They were making a comeback. They are making a comeback in the Western United States and New England because we helped restore their population. The habitat itself is fragmented. It tends to be not big piles of them in places. They tend to grow, like I said, very solitary. And then next, weasels. Weasels are another one. So I've always confused these three. So whenever Em and I are going out in the woods, going hiking, and I go, is that a weasel? Or is that a mink? Now we're going to talk a little bit about the last one, and then we'll be able to identify them. First of all, they're only 12 to 18 inches long. The tail is about a third of the beast. They live in northern climates, and they turn white with black tail in wintertime. They eat mostly voles, mice, birds, frogs, insects, and can maybe do a rabbit. And they primarily live in fields, forests, deserts. They're adaptable. They can go all sorts of the places. And they're pretty good at killing prey that is much bigger than they are. And someone called them the ninja of the mammal world. There are all sorts of different types of weasels out there. The short-tailed weasel, also called the ermine, North America, Canada, Alaska. And they're a little bit smaller, 6 to 12 inches. They also have that winter coat that turns white. Their black tips on their tails is unique to them. They live mostly in cool, moist woodlands and tundra areas. And then there's something called the least weasel. They are the tiniest. They are carnivores in North America, just 4 to 9 inches. They can weigh under just 1 ounce. They're all over Northern America, in the US and Southern Canada. Again, the best way to tell is that white coat in wintertime, and they're very hyperactive. They never stop moving. And because of their size, they can fit inside of tiny mice burrows. And the analogy I read is they're a spaghetti sized assassin. That's pretty funny. So those are the weasels. And really their big superpowers is that they're flexible, they're tube shaped, they can tunnel in, highly energy animal, their metabolism runs, and so they have to eat frequently, and they can eat half their body weight in a single day. And one of the big things, like I said, is that they are a stealth hunter. They're the ninjas of the forest. Weasels are abundant in this particular area, the Northwoods. And what was funny about it is that, well, maybe it's not funny. When I was in Hawaii, the problem with Hawaii is that everything lives in Hawaii. It survives, it thrives. And someone brought weasels out to catch the sugarcane mice that exist there. That's also why there's cats everywhere. They were trying to bring down this population of these sugar mice. Brought weasels. The weasels take off. They just love the climate. And I remember one time I was there and I ate a sandwich and I had a lot of bread left over. So I took the bread and I kind of threw it into this trash bin. And all of a sudden, out of the middle of the woods, weasel comes out, jumps into the trash, grabs what was left of my sandwich, and runs off. And I said to my coworker, I was like, what was that? And we had no idea and asked the local, and they said, oh, those are the weasels. So in that particular case, they were very bold, but it was very ninja like. It was very quick. And within seconds of me throwing away that big pile of bread, you can find them oftentimes too, like I said, in the forest, but sometimes they like to dart in meadows, walk along stream banks, and they're very good at maintaining their balance. They're very stealthy and very agile. And so those are the three animals, like I said, I confuse. Usually otters are in that same family group, but usually when I see an otter, I'm pretty good at identifying them as otters. We'll talk about otters in another episode. But minks, weasels, and fishers are all member of that same family. They have a similar role in ecology, but yet they have their own sorts of traits. Now makes me believe that most of the time when Em and I are out bird watching, we're seeing a mink because we are oftentimes in marshes. Then the next part, like I said, is the weasel. There's a really small one, there is medium-sized ones, and that's the medium-sized animal, darting through narrow tunnels, going in and out of woods, meadows, and sometimes along the river, but not living there. And again, in wintertime, their coat turns white with the black tip on the tail. And then the fishers, the best way to find a fisher is, first of all, they're the biggest of those three. Dense forest, mixed forest, they're in the woods. They tend to climb, like I said, head first downwards. They're often called fisher cats. They're not cats and they don't fish, so that's kind of funny. But they are primarily in those woods. So that's the easiest way to sort of identify them. They have three different cultures that they like to live in. And so then the real question is how can I tell the difference? Like I said, weasels, very small. Minks, medium size. Fishers, the largest. Weasels move in and out in a jerky motion, hyperactive, zigzaggy. For motion, weasels are very hyperactive, jerky motions, zigzaggy, darting in and out. Minks are more smooth, but they're weaving and hugging near the groundwater. And then fishers move with confidence with a loping gait through the forest. And like I said, we talked about the areas that they go in, weasels being in the brushy edges, the understory, the meadows, the forest, the minks always near water, and the fishers deep into forest. The weasels are short-tailed, relative to their body, very tube-like. Minks, longer, bushier than the weasel, and then has kind of slick, dark, almost stretched out like an otter. And fishers are thick, bushy-tailed, and much stockier, much more muscular, broader head, longer legs. Weasels are brown in summer, white in winter. Minks are dark chocolate brown all the time, with a little tiny white patch sometimes under the chin. And then fishers are dark brown, almost to black, with this very kind of golden or grayish highlight sometimes around the head and the shoulder. So that is the easiest way to tell the difference between them. There are other types that go into this family: the European badger, the American badger. Otters, I mentioned before, are part of this family. Wolverines, someone that's called a tera, which someone said is a cross between a mink and a monkey. I just can't even imagine. And giant otters, yellow-throated martins, hog badgers, American badgers, Japanese weasels, ermines. So that they're all over the world. And so you'd be able to find something that is in your neck of the woods. This is what I have in the Northwoods of America, but you might have something else. And I think out of the whole lot, only ferrets are domesticated and can be used as pets. So if you just want a single sentence that just describes how you can identify them, if it's sleek and sneaky, it's a mink. If it's tiny and twitchy, it's a weasel. And if it looks like a muscle-bound weasel with attitude, it's a fisher. I hope that helps you in identifying out there. So my challenge to you is see if you could go find a small rodent. You can go find an otter too, or any members of these families, but go see if you can find something in this particular family. It can be an otter, it can be anything like that. All right, everyone, thanks so much. I appreciate you watching. So if you have other topics you would like to learn a little bit more that's in nature outside your front door, let me know. You can always email me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com or leave a comment right here in the channel if you're watching this on YouTube. I'm starting to get into YouTube. I'm getting a little bit better at it and trying to put pictures and better diagrams so that you can actually see what I'm talking about while I'm talking about it. Thanks so much. I appreciate you watching.